What's happening, everybody? How might y'all be doing out there? Today's guest is drummer Bobby Caldwell, not to be confused with the New York R&B singer Bobby Caldwell, who, to my surprise, was not black. I mean, feel free to listen to a song like What You Wouldn't Do for Love and tell me that you automatically assumed he was white. I'm thinking not. Shocker. But it was drummer Bobby Caldwell that I spoke to, of the one and only Captain Beyond, as well as Armageddon, and also played with Rick Derringer and Johnny Winter and many more. Bobby and I started this interview some 2 years ago, and we weren't able to finish it in person, so thankfully we were able to pick it up again. And as I mentioned in the interview, Bobby's one of those guys whose performance on the debut Captain Beyond record of 72 should absolutely be seen as one of the greatest performances in any kind of 70s groove rock, prog rock, stoner rocks, etc., whatever subgenre you'd like to attach to them, although they were very much in their own sphere, in my opinion. So I hope you dig it, and be on the lookout for both Bobby's new podcast as well as Captain Beyond getting back out on the road when things commence. Shout out to my sponsor, New Orleans Record Press. If you're looking to print vinyl, check out NewOrleansRecordPress.com for all your vinyl needs, from mastering to vinyl coloring to electroplating to packaging to assistance with design and a real-time quote generator. They can hook it up, and that's NewOrleansRecordPress.com. Keep your eyes and ears open during this downtime for musicians offering online lessons, websites like Save Our Stages to help keep venues alive, as well as fundraisers for bars and other service industry workers that are struggling alongside so many artists. Help them out if you can. Crash Bang Boom Podcast can be found on my SoundCloud and YouTube pages, as well as Google Play, Podbean, Stitcher, Luminary, and more. Check out my Facebook and Instagram pages for additional content and updates. Please give me a like or a follow, etc. if you could. The support is also appreciated. So here we go. Bobby Caldwell. Dude was ripping some serious chops back in 72, and I love that record, and I'm an absolute fan of his playing. 21 years old to boot. That is crazy. Here we go. Crash, bang, boom.
Crowds go mad with joy.
All right, I'm here with Bobby Caldwell, a guy that I've been wanting to talk to. Spoke to briefly when Captain Beyond came through St. Vitus a couple years ago. We never got to finish the interview, so thankfully we get to pick back up again with the miracle that is technology and the phones and everything else in this COVID world in which we live. How are you doing, man?
Very good indeed. Thank you.
Yeah, hanging in there, I take it. I've been asking a lot of the musicians that I've spoken to thus far during this, if anything was interrupted with everything being put on hold, especially with live music and, recording studios are having issues and this and that and the other. Did this interrupt anything, or were you already amidst a break, or how is this affecting you?
Well, I mean, it interrupted everything that that we were going to do in the summer for certain. I mean, everything
Right.
that was going to be planned had to be postponed, let's just say.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, in that sense, it did. But it's opening up again now. I think it's going to be improving, and being told perhaps August, September that they're going to be trying to, open up these venues and in different ways. They've got to get live music out there playing. It's got to happen. I mean, people have to be able to go out.
Right.
Whether they wear, a Lone Ranger's mask or whatever the hell they want to do. I mean, they've got to. I'm being silly, but I mean, they've got to. They've got to be able to go out and see live music. So I think they're going to be up and running in some fashion here in the next month or two, couple of months. Or whatever.
Gotcha. And when you said we, I'm assuming that was Captain Beyond looking at doing a run of shows this summer?
Yeah, we had a long list of things that we were commencing to do, and this applies to everybody. Everything stopped. The promoters, now have to go back and realize, well, could they even make their mortgage payments
Right.
that they had to make, because you might see a lot of these places not even in business that were long-time staples in music, in different cities. So it'll be, I'm sorry to say that it'll be interesting when I don't say the word interesting very favorably, it'll be It'll be something to see what happens here.
I know, man. I know. I'm cautiously optimistic, but I fully understand the financial impact, especially of venues during this period. But certainly hope that there will be a good bit of them left, so we can come back and continue to have live music, as you were saying. But I mentioned Captain Beyond coming through St. Vitus, that being the last time that I saw you briefly. Just to touch base on that show and getting that particular lineup together, was the process of rehearsing and et cetera. And correct me if I'm wrong, but were there 4 guitarists up there on the stage for that?
There wasn't. I mean, The singer also plays guitar and keyboard, so officially no.
Gotcha.
But he doubles certain parts, and so actually there was 3.
Gotcha. Was it a process getting that material together with that lineup? And I mean, hell, just even revisiting your own drumming from nearly 50 years ago on that self-titled Captain Beyond record. Were you impressed with your own playing and revisiting it?
Well, what you have to try to do is recreate what the people are used to hearing. Mm-hmm. And if you can try to, recreate that and more, that's what they want to hear.
Right.
You can't get up there and, I mean, people do it. And I've heard groups go up there and play something, and it's sort of, shall we say, half measure, Mm-hmm. But that's not what the people want to hear. I mean, they want to hear what they love about a certain record or a certain part of a record or something. As long as you meet that, if you want to do other things above and beyond that, no pun intended, that's fine. Mm-hmm. But you've got to at least do that.
Right.
And, that's what they're there to hear. So that music is, it's just not 3 chords and, we're off to the circus. It's a bit, in order to really make it do what it needs to do, you really have to be, prepared and then perform it, you see.
Yeah.
So it takes some time to get it to where it needs to be.
Right, man. Well, last time we talked, you told me an interesting story, and we're kind of reverting back to you being a kid and growing up, and if we can maybe revisit sort of what made you want to be a drummer in the first place. But I would love you to retell the story about when you saw Joe Morello as a kid, and what I imagine was a pretty profound influence on you from seeing him. Oh,
jeez. Well, let me see. Well, the Dave Brubeck Quartet at that time was, for everybody listening, was at that time probably would be the equivalent of the Beatles of jazz. I mean, they were the premier group. I mean, Take 5 was a monster hit, which was unprecedented to have a jazz song be a top 10 record. Mm-hmm. I want to tell everybody something here too. Joe Morello used to sit and fool around with this 5/4 time signature. Mm. He was the one that would fool around with this. Mm. Now, that song, before I get on with to answer your question, Jody, he would fool around with this backstage, and the song wasn't even together in anything. And Dave used to say to Paul, listen, you need to go back there and get with Joe and see if you could put this melody you've been playing to this time that Joe's playing. Mm-hmm. And Paul sort of put it off and kind of said, well, I don't know, man, maybe we could do that. I don't know, I'll check it out, So really what I'm trying to say to you is that in actual fact, the credit to Take 5 was given to Paul Desmond. Mm. But in honesty, it should have been a partnership with Joe Morello, because there would not have been what you know as Take 5 without Joe's tremendous contribution and what that he did with Paul in putting that song together. Now, That said, so that song is out. The band is huge, and so they come to the town that I was living in Florida, and so I begged my parents to take me down there to see them, and they did. And I just sat there and was stunned. By I didn't know what they were playing. I didn't know what he was playing.
Yeah.
And Joe was they got to take 5. Every song was unbelievable anyway because they only had 4 of them, and the sound was tremendous, and it was so clear between the 4 of them, and the acoustics were great, and the place was sold out. And by the time they got to take 5, Joe did his drum solo, and in the middle of it did this drum roll, and then took his right hand away and continued playing the drum roll with one hand.
Mm-hmm.
At which time I was looking for some kind of oxygen or something. I was a child. I didn't even know, but I still knew I needed oxygen. I needed something.
Yeah.
Where's the emergency room?
Yeah.
Even at 10 years old, I thought you got to be. I don't know what I just witnessed, but I knew it was something, extraterrestrial.
Mm-hmm.
And fortunately, I got to go backstage and meet them.
Wow.
Yeah, and got all of them to sign my album. You know how, when you're real little, they'll accommodate you so much more. And
Totally.
And they did, and I still have that album.
Wow.
And, in a frame.
Yeah, I bet.
And it was just a real, that was just one of those times that you never forget. And Joe, I never forgot about how great he was. He was in a class by himself. He was probably the most musical drummer that, and I've seen them all.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen all the great drummers,
Mm-hmm.
talk to them, and in my opinion, he is probably the most musical drummer I've ever seen.
Yeah.
In his own way, just unbelievable amount of technique, and just stayed with me. And I don't even like to compare, because they all have something to say.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? In their own way. Everybody has something to say. It's like Oscar Peterson and Brubeck and, all the great pianists or all the great guitar, it doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
It really is how it moves you.
Yeah.
For what would, Clapton said one time, for whatever I have to play that you might think is great, Jimi Hendrix has something that's twice as great that I have. It's different.
Yeah.
So that's how I always felt about Joe,
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, he always was, has always been one of my all-time favorites.
Wow. Well, going forward, I imagine. Were you playing a drum set? You were playing a drum set at the time when you said you were, I guess, 10 when you saw Joe Morello and Dave Brubeck at the time, huh?
No.
Wow.
I would go home and cry. I was in the school band,
Mm-hmm.
and just going through the school band and marching in the school band and stuff like that, and trying to make sense of all that. But
Yeah.
I had not been able to convince my parents that buying me a drum set was a worthy endeavor.
Right.
Not at that point.
How old were you when you got your first drum set?
Probably 14. Maybe.
Okay.
Somewhere in that, 13 or 14.
Yeah.
Yeah, something like that.
Wow. And leading into, I guess, playing the drum set itself, it sounds like you were playing drums in school and whatnot. I was looking at some early Captain Beyond footage, and it looked like you were playing conventional grip at the time, unless my eyes were mistaking me. Did you start out playing that from your work with, like, playing in marching band and whatnot?
I was always playing traditional.
Mm-hmm.
I became a rudimental drummer champion in 7th grade.
Oh, wow.
in Florida, you could go, if you were in the school band, they would have these district band contests.
Mm-hmm.
And you would join these contests with other schools and compete. And you would give these certain drum contests, to these judges, and you would go up and play before them.
Mm-hmm.
And the highest ones you could get were grade 6.
Mm.
So I would give these grade 6, solos and duets with another drummer. I would do them. And then you would play with the band, and then if you were in the orchestra, you play with the orchestra. The most you could get for any one day would be 4 medals.
Mm.
Now, that would depend on how good you were. It depends on whether you got excellent, superior, whatever you got.
Yeah.
So, I did pretty well on those, and where I got superior every time that I did it.
Mm.
I did it to the extent of getting superior because that's what I had to do that because that's where you had to go. But that's not where my love was.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I did it because this is where I am at this moment, but that's not what, it's not where, my heart was always thinking about what channel's that radio on?
Mm-hmm.
I need to go do this, at some point. But if I'm going to be in this thing, I'm going to excel at it. So that's what I did. Mm. So and then I went into military school and did that for a while and led the drum section in that stuff and went out of my mind. And then, the whole rudimental situation was always the sort of foundational thing.
Gotcha.
And I met a kid that had come down who went to Interlochen Music Conservatory in Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
And he could read really well. And he taught me how to read. Mm. And so he would go through things and come over to my house and teach me how to read. But he couldn't play a drum set very well. Mm. And I could sit down at a drum set and naturally play. Mm-hmm. I never took any lessons.
Wow.
So I would just sit down and he would marvel because he just couldn't believe how I'd say, I don't know how I'm doing this. I just he'd say, Bobby, how do you do that? I don't know. Yeah. And so, but I couldn't read anything, and he would teach me how to read. So I learned a lot from him about things that I didn't know. And then I watched a lot of people in town and playing in different groups and rock groups and this and that, much older than me, much older. And so that's, that was how I pretty much got started with all that stuff.
Wow. Well, looking at it, if we venture forward to Captain Beyond, and it's interesting that you mentioned how sort of heavily you delved into the rudimental aspect of drumming, because I can certainly hear it on that self-titled Captain Beyond record. I mean, your chops sound incredible on that stuff. But in 72, it's interesting because I guess there was this push of bands that I would say that I'm a big fan of starting around like 1970 and then, forward, where I would say it's sort of this proto sort of stoner rock, sort of prog influenced thing that was happening with bands from like Wishbone Ash and the Allman Brothers, and then for other bands like Cactus and Leafhound and Sir Lord Baltimore and Atomic Rooster, the first Rush record, Lucifer's Friend, etc. There's like all these bands kind of popping up that were these heavy blues bands that had some at times proggy elements to it, of which Captain Beyond had that in spades, which was really incredible. But I'm just curious, I guess, when Captain Beyond started, did you feel that there were other kindred spirits in bands that were out there, or did y'all kind of did it just sort of organically happen with that sound, or tell me a little bit about, I guess, starting that band?
Well, I'll tell you this right now. What happened was I had been playing with the Allman Brothers.
Oh, right.
Yeah, I'd been playing with the real Allman Brothers.
Right. And
playing with Johnny Winter and at the same time, both groups. Ah. When Johnny went on this hiatus, Rhino and Lee Dorman had contacted me, whom I knew, about getting together and talking about putting this new band together.
Mm-hmm.
So I was kind of reluctant when the future was pretty uncertain as to when Johnny was going to be back on the road.
Mm-hmm.
I told Rhino and Lee, the Iron Butterfly was who they were a part of. For all you listening, they were involved with Iron Butterfly, which was one of the biggest groups in the world at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And the Iron Butterfly was also folding.
Mm-hmm.
And I said to Rhino and Lee, I said, this sounds like it might be a good thing. We didn't have a singer yet.
Right.
But I said, I'd be happy to do this or talk about it, but I'm not going to play the blues.
Right.
I'm not interested in being in a blues band. I'm bluesed out.
Right.
I said, I said, there's nothing wrong with that. I said, if we're going to do something that's blues-based and all that stuff, fine.
Mm-hmm.
But, I don't want to do Albert King. I mean, it's wonderful, but if we're going to do something that's got that kind of heart and soul in it, that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to do something different. And if you're into doing something different, see, I've been writing these songs on my own for a few years, these song ideas and these time signatures.
Yeah.
So I've been sitting on this stuff, and so when they said, absolutely, let's try it. So that's once I got the green light that they were into it, I thought, okay, well, fantastic. Let's see what we can do. So we weren't, to answer your question, Rod Evans had just come over from leaving Deep Purple, and we weren't watching anybody. Mm-hmm. I mean, honestly, we didn't even know anybody even existed, and I'm not kidding. I mean, Rhino had a house, for all you people who live in L.A., he had a house out in the valley, and Lee lived in Laurel Canyon, and Rod lived in Laurel Canyon, and I lived with Lee.
Okay.
So what we would do is every single day we drove out to Rhino's house. It's a true story. We drove out to Rhino's house 5 days a week from about 9 to 6.
Wow.
It was like a regular job. We drove to his house, and we practiced every day at his house. This is what we did.
Wow.
And that's where we put these songs together. We didn't listen to other people. We didn't even, honestly, we couldn't have told you, people might say, hey, have you heard of so-and-so? And we go, no, because we were so in this bubble that it wasn't for any real reason. I mean, we didn't think we were anything special at all. We didn't know what we were doing. We were just trying to put these things together because we thought that if we liked the songs, we were pretty sure that other people would like them. Mm-hmm. So, to give you an example, if I can just keep going here.
Sure.
So, for instance, I used to play, we would get in there, and some days I'd be sitting in there, and I'd play this, I'd be beating around on the drums, and I'd play this, da boom boom ba boom ba ba boom ba boom ba boom, and I would just be screwing around. That's all I was doing. Mm-hmm. And one day, Rhino started playing this ba da ba boom ba da. That was the beginning of Dancing Madly Backwards.
Right.
And I happened to have written this whole song of Dancing Madly Backwards and gave it to Rod. And Rod started singing the whole song as it started coming together.
Wow. But
that's how it all came down, right? Just like that.
Wow.
We didn't have any kind of charted course or, we're going to watch this band over here, or we were just trying to figure out what we were doing. And we were pretty sure, like I said, if we liked it, we were pretty sure other people would like it. And we just kept writing these tunes, and we would write these songs, and that's pretty much how it happened, how it started.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned the odd time signatures because that's definitely something that I would attribute to that first self-titled record. And then in your absence with the following record, Sufficiently Breathless, you hear significantly less of that. So I assumed that you had a hand in bringing in that some of those odd time signatures. And on songs like Mesmerization Eclipse, it's always hard for me to say that song title. I guess that's in 7, like the main verse riff or whatever. But there's so much cool stuff happening, and like the time signatures, the grooves, the tones, everything about it. Especially I love Raging River of Fear. It ends with I Can't Feel Nothing Part 2. I'm fascinated by that record. So it's really interesting hearing you talk about it. When the record came out, what were your thoughts on it? Were you like, did you feel like you were sitting on something every bit as interesting as sort of y'all felt about it in writing it?
Well, there's a real interesting story about how we ended up on Capricorn Records, because we really should not have signed with them. We did not go around, and Dwayne and Greg, I got to tell everybody listening this story, because I've had a lot of people have come up to me and on the road and said, "Man, how did you guys end up on Capricorn?" Only because it's kind of like it's just like a mismatch. It's kind of, and I'll just tell it real quick. What happened was when the Allman Brothers came to L.A., naturally, we went over there. Rhino and I went over there with the acetate, or this, what we had been doing. We had about 20 minutes. The Lost and Found that's out right now. That you see out for sale. That is the exact 20-minute songs that we had finished. So we went over there and played it for Dwayne and Greg, and Dwayne was just flipped by it. So Dwayne gets on the phone and calls Phil. So Phil Walden says, can you guys come down to the office tomorrow morning? And now, mind you, Phil Walden listened to Dwayne, I mean, as if God had called him.
Right.
Seriously. I mean, I don't mean sort of, kind of, I mean for real.
Yeah.
And if Dwayne walked into that office and told Phil, listen, we need a new bus that's got to be 35 foot at least long, Phil would say, what time did you want to pick it up? Right. He didn't say, I don't think we can afford it, or this. Fine. So when Dwayne's telling him this about this new band with Rhino and Bobby in it and this and that, Phil already knows me because I've been playing with him.
Right.
All of a sudden Phil sees, Brink's trucks of money, backing up to the his bank account. He sees trucks like that banking up,
right.
Backing up. So we go down to the office the next day, and we're sitting there having a very cordial meeting. And Phil says, so I know you guys need a lot of things at this stage, so do you have some ideas that you want to tell me what you guys need? And we start rattling off these things that we need. And no matter what we said we needed, he said, no problem. What do you next, what do you need?
Wow.
Well, we need this and that. We'd like to do this. Okay, that's fine. Excellent. Okay. Cheryl, write that down, is the secretary. Yep. Okay, write that down. It's fine. No problem. $50,000 for that? Probably. Okay, that's good. Right. We'll start with that. And everything we said, it was absolutely doable.
Yeah.
Now, when you're sitting in an office and having done enough record deals, and you have someone saying this who's the president.
Yeah.
You see where I'm going with this?
Yeah.
It's pretty hard to say no.
Yeah.
But we didn't say yes either. We just told him, and he was like wide open. We said, listen, we want to go to Europe first because we don't want to play over here first. We'd like to go to Europe. No problem. How about if we go over there and do the Montreux Jazz and Pop Festival first and this and that? I can set that up. And so everything we brought up, it was no problem.
Wow.
So we told him we'd think on it, and we got back to him in a couple of days. But the mistake was we should have gone out to Warner Brothers and Reprise and Capitol and Columbia, whatever, but we didn't.
Right.
And we should have. That was the mistake.
Gotcha.
So, you know, but what are you going to do?
Yeah. Wow, man. Well, I guess tell me a little bit about, we mentioned Rhino for a second there, but just tell me a little bit about your impression of him as a guitarist, because the way that you two played together, I thought y'all really, I mean, and obviously Captain Beyond as a band, but for sure the stuff that Rhino was pulling off with your drumming, I think y'all had a pretty special chemistry. I was just curious what you thought about him as a player.
Well, Larry and I had known each other as acquaintances sort of from a distance in Florida, you know, for a while. Mm-hmm. We had already known each other. But when we got together, it was pretty telepathic, seriously.
Yeah.
And when it came to writing songs, we had it going on. I mean, we could write songs together, no problem. Mm-hmm. Boom. Boom. That was all it was. All of those songs, a lot of those songs that you're talking about, were really the three of us: mm-hmm. Rhino, Rod, and me.
Yeah.
That was the three of us, the brain trust.
Yeah.
And Rhino's playing was extraordinary. He was a beautiful player. He didn't overplay. He knew exactly how much to play. He had a beautiful sense of melody. He was just a great guitarist. I mean, simply put, I don't know what else I could tell you about him.
Yeah.
And as a writing partner, I could say to him, Larry, I mean, I called him Larry half the time. Mm-hmm. I said, listen, I've got this idea, and let me show it to you and see what you think. And I could show it to him, and he'd say, oh, yeah, let me see. And he'd start noodling around, and in about 15 minutes, he'd call me Fire. He'd say, Fire, play that pattern. Show me what you're playing. Mm-hmm. So I'd start playing drums, and then he'd start playing what he had been doing on the guitar. All of a sudden, we had it. All of a sudden this whole thing together, and it was always exactly what it needed. Not kind of. I mean, he was just telepathically, as writers together, it couldn't have been any better. He was just spectacular, really. I really miss the guy. He was wonderful, just a wonderful person to write songs with, and to perform with.
I bet. Yeah. I mean, it certainly sounds like it. You mentioned Rod Evans. We obviously don't need to go into any depth about his issues with Deep Purple. I'll let the listeners look into that. But I was just out of curiosity, has he heard any, like for the run that y'all did where I saw you at St. Vitus? I don't know if you still are in contact with him or not. I was just curious if he had heard any recordings of what y'all had done. And if so, what did he think about it? But I guess that's all predicated on whether or not you still speak to him on occasion.
Well, I speak to Rod on occasion. Rod's fine. Rod never did anything that was so, egregious. I mean.
Oh no, I know. I think it's so to speak, it's a fucked up story. It's unfortunate. I just want to, for the listeners, I'll just say this much, okay? Mm-hmm. Deep Purple was broken up, yep. And somebody approached him and said, "Hey, how would you like to go out and do some dates as Deep Purple?" Well, he was in the original band. Why not? Right.
And so he went out there and did some dates, and somebody said, "Oh no, you can't do that because there's legal issues and this and that," and so he had to stop. That's basically all that happened.
Yeah.
And he is one of the greatest lyricist, melody writers. He is to tell you, I can't tell you how talented that man is. Mm-hmm. I mean, or was, or whatever. I mean, and I'm not over exaggerating that.
Yeah.
I'm just so sorry that there's so little that he was able to contribute musically in the music business, because this guy, he didn't try to be friggin' Robert Plant or, mm-hmm. to try to be a blues singer. He was just what he was, and he was unique, and he could write lyrics like nobody's business, and I just want to tell you, he was something else. Rod Evans is I really mean that.
I hear you, man. I'm with you.
I really wish if he had stayed in the business and carried on, and he really would have been a legend. And I mean that. He was just a fantastic talent.
Absolutely, man. Well, as for drummers, I had a question for you. There's a lick that you play, and I kind of the only what I've heard it between Mitch Mitchell, yourself, Carmine Appice, and Ian Pace, and I don't know what the specific rudiment is, but to sing it, it's if does that sound familiar? It's a lick that you played especially a lot on that first Captain Beyond record. I was curious if that was a specific rudiment, or was it unconscious, or do you even know which one I'm talking about?
You know where it is that's played?
Oh, you play it all the time. It's one of your licks.
Oh.
Yeah, it's a kind of a Mitch Mitchell-esque thing. That's maybe one of the guys that I heard doing it early on, but it's just a really interesting one. I'm sure you were just riffing at the time, but it's just a really cool phrase, and you play it, and I think it's single strokes. Unless they're loud doubles. I was just curious.
It might be something to do like with a 4-stroke ruff or something. I don't.
Yeah.
It might be something to do in that type of thing where you're just sort of you rip off these things at a high speed.
Yep.
I have to hear it. If you point it out to me or or something, I'd be happy to tell you, what it is.
For sure.
Does Mitch do it too?
Yeah, it's one of Mitch's riffs that he kind of does as well. I could send you one of the tracks and just be like, that's it right there after the fact, and let me know what you think it is.
Yeah, just do that. That's fine. Yeah.
Right on, man.
I'll see if we can identify it.
There you go.
You say that Carmine does it too?
Carmine did it a little bit in Cactus. Ian Pace definitely does it, and Mitch Mitchell would do it at times, and it was definitely one of your go-tos, especially on that self-titled
you got
method.
Only people that would do that or could do that, and I'm going to say, are people that play with a lot of hand speed,
right?
Which I do, and Mitch would do, and Ian would do, and Carmine. The only people that would do that, people that don't have that or don't just do that as a style, would do that.
Right.
Just because it's not your style. Yeah.
Totally.
But show it to me, and I'll try to find what the mystery thing is.
Awesome, man. Sounds great. And it bears mentioning with that Captain Beyond record in '72. If I'm doing the edition right on this, you would have only been like 21 years old, which that's some incredible playing for someone who's 21 years old, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah,
well,
for real.
I lose track of that because I keep telling everybody I'm 39 now. So
Yeah, there you go.
Well, everybody else can lie about it. I guess I can do it too.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
Did you ever hear the Lost and Found album?
I don't know that I did.
You should get a hold of that. That is the demos that we did that I was telling you that Dwayne heard. That's got the original Icarus on it. I Can't Feel Nothing and Raging River of Fear. They're not the same as on the first album. Actually, and there's some places on it that are pretty interesting. And we did those that. If you get the copy of Lost and Found, that we actually did those when you hear them in Rhino's house.
Oh, wow.
But they don't sound like it. And they came out about two years ago on Cleopatra.
Okay.
But if you can't get it, we've got copies of them.
Oh, right on.
I mean, I'm not trying to sell you anything. I'm just saying there's more to than that, or the Night Train and the Be As You Were and those things that are on YouTube as well. So
right, yeah, I'll definitely look it up. I definitely see it on YouTube, so I'll have to check that out and A/B the demos versus what it ultimately ended up on the record. It'd be cool to hear the differences there for sure. Well, in 1973, it's 72, 73, 74, 75 were interesting years for you between putting out the Captain Beyond, working with Rick Derringer, Johnny Winter, and then doing Armageddon in 75. But I guess I'm curious how did you end up hooking up with Rick Derringer in 73 on that All American Boy record? And I know he's a killer guitarist who worked, I guess, with the Winter Brothers, so maybe there's a connection. But I guess when you were tracking Rock and Roll Hoochie Coo, did you have a sense that might end up being such a big hit?
Well, remember, Rick and I played with Johnny and Johnny Winter and.
Gotcha.
So that was very simple. I mean, he just asked me if I wanted to do his album, and we went out to do it at Caribou Ranch in Colorado.
Nice.
The real kicker was there was nobody there but he and I.
Wow.
Everything you hear on that album was recorded with guitar and drums. No bass, nobody else there except Bill Simzik, the producer. That was it.
Wow.
And if you never recorded like that with just a guitar and the drums, it's always pretty weird.
Yeah, I bet.
You know what I mean? When we did Rock and Roll Hoochie Coo, I don't think we gave it much thought as to being a single. I mean, radio, I call them radio records. And that was such a huge priority for everybody. And maybe Rick had that in mind.
Yeah.
He never expressed it to me.
Yeah.
But maybe after he listened to all the songs, then maybe he made that decision. Right. But he never said anything to me. All I know is, when it started being played on the radio, I kind of had a feeling it was going to be a hit because it was too much of a sing-songy type thing, and that's what you want. If you want a hit record, you want all of those hooks to be in there, and they were there.
Totally. Yeah, and it's an interesting record, man. The drums sound great. Your playing is great. Rick's a killer guitarist, and there are other songs on there if the listeners are interested, like Time Warp and Slide Over Slinky, and some of those jams on there. I really dig those songs. So I only more recently really figured out that you were even on it, which is so bizarre because growing up I listened to a lot of classic rock, and Rock and Roll Hoochie Coo was a staple on classic rock radio for years. So it's just trippy that I was hearing your drumming all along, not quite realizing later when I heard Captain Beyond that was the same guy. It was kind of blew my mind.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah.
Totally, man.
Yeah, there's the time where there's some time signature things that we do it on some of his stuff too.
Yeah. Well, I also dig the Saints and Sinners Johnny Winter record that you were on. I guess tell me a little bit about working with him, and or if you have any interesting stories, because he seemed like such a character. I mean, between he and his brother, I don't know. Tell me a little bit, I guess, about working with him and recording that record, Saints and Sinners.
Well, I mean, there's nothing I can tell you about Johnny Winter except that he's one of the, which is what I'm going to tell you is really going to blow people's minds because they know him as a great guitar player. But I just finished talking to Edgar not too long ago, and I told him, I said that Johnny was one of the greatest singers in the fucking history of popular music, and I'm not kidding.
Yeah.
And but Edgar knows that. Edgar knows it.
Yeah.
And if you need any proof, anybody out there that's listening to me, I want you to go to listen to Johnny Winter sing "No Time to Live," the old Stevie Winwood song. And Johnny sings it so beautifully. He was just an extraordinary singer.
Yeah.
But because he would always come out and growl that rock and roll and all that, a lot of people don't realize what a unbelievable singer he really was. So when I think of Johnny, and I love the guy, when I think of him, I just think of him as a unbelievably talented guy. Edgar told me that when they were kids, that Johnny could take any Roy Orbison song and copy it and sing it almost note for note and just blow people away in the audience. And I said, it doesn't surprise me at all.
Right.
So that's what comes to mind when you ask me about Johnny. I mean, just a fantastic guy, and what a talent. That's, man.
Yeah. I tell you what, man, his brother Edgar could sing his ass off too.
And Edgar too. Are you kidding? I mean,
oh my God.
On some other future thing, I'll tell you the real funny story about how I joined Johnny Winter, because that story is, as far as trivia or historical events, it was pretty bizarre because it's almost like how In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida was recorded in one take,
right?
Which everybody thought they were doing they thought they were just running it down for the sake of the levels, and
Right.
and actually that was the take that everybody kept.
Oh my God, that's crazy. Well, in '75, I'd be interested to hear sort of the backstory on Armageddon, because yet another really interesting band, some longer in as far as duration is concerned, songs, some twists and turns, really awesome, great playing again on your behalf. Just tell me a little bit about, I guess, getting that band together, and to my understanding, y'all only played live maybe a couple of times, right?
Well, what happened was we met in L.A. and we got together. A&M Records was very excited about signing us, but we signed a management deal that we thought was going to work out, but it didn't.
Yeah.
And basically, kind of A&M, Jerry Moss, they were kind of stuck because they couldn't really do anything, because they weren't the manager.
Mm-hmm.
So if a manager, doesn't do anything, for whatever reason, the record company can't just unilaterally start doing things because they could get in trouble. So we kind of were in limbo. It was a real shame.
Right.
It was a great group. Keith Relf was an unbelievable talent, and I really love these guys, and we really had a lot of fun, and it was a real. I mean, in short, it was a real shame because that group had really all the makings of really big things, and we got passed off to another management agency, and this guy didn't know what to do. This guy didn't know what to do either.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a joke.
Right.
And so
wow.
there you have it.
Well, with on the couple of shows that I guess Armageddon did play, do you recall like how they were received?
Well, they were received good.
Yeah.
I remember Carmine was in the audience.
Oh wow, nice.
Carmine came by to see me, because I had played in Cactus,
Right. Yeah. Well, we'll touch on that for a second as well. But he came out and he enjoyed the show.
It was fun. I mean, he didn't throw anything at me, so I guess he liked it. I mean,
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there was some sound problems and this and that and whatever, but Joe Cocker came by.
Nice. That's wild.
I was, hearkening back is a good word.
Yeah.
Wishing that all of that had been a launching pad for, a lot bigger things, because that band should have been going out and doing some big things. I know that early on there were some attempts to get us on with certain people, and we were turned down.
Right.
I know that for a fact.
Yeah. Do you think it at all? It was just kind of an anomaly, and that y'all were playing these longer songs, and that maybe the people just didn't quite know how to categorize you, and that was ultimately sort of the problem at some of those levels.
No, I don't. I mean, there's no doubt that in hindsight, probably it would have been nicer to edit, some things here and there. That would have been fine.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think that was any more than saying, hey, I think some of those things on Zeppelin's albums were a bit too long. We need to cut those down
For
some.
sure.
I don't.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. True.
If people are digging it, they don't give a shit. It's
True.
Like, yeah. Okay.
Playing some long jams. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice, man.
But I listen to that stuff, once in a while, and I think to myself, because you can't help it. You say, well, we could have edited this a little bit, shortened this a little bit, would have been a little bit better. But would it had any impact on anything? I doubt it.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. Well, in '77, you ended up back in Captain Beyond. Y'all did Dawn Explosion. I'm assuming that was nice to reunite with Rhino again after those years doing these other records and whatnot.
Yep. Yeah, it was great. The problem was was that we didn't record the album in the same way that we did the first one.
Mm.
And I told Lee and Rhino that. I said, because we all believed that we could get the sound at the record plant up in San Francisco, we thought we could get the same sound, and we couldn't.
What was different about that recording from the first one? Did y'all all record the first one all live in the same room, or in sectioned off rooms?
Yeah, and we did. Well, we recorded it at Sunset Sound, and you can hear how live it sounds.
Yeah,
and
yeah, totally.
The way it was mixed, the drum sound, God.
Yeah.
The real sound, like the first one been on that third one, would have helped it tremendously. I don't know if it would have saved it, but it would have really helped it a lot.
Yeah.
But we had a lot of problems with this gentleman that was involved in the engineering department. So there was a lot of problems with it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, post 77, putting that record out, I guess, and I didn't even ask you, but what year did you move out to L.A. from Florida, where you're originally from, and then now you're back in Florida, correct?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Do you know what year you moved out to California in?
I have no idea. No, I'm kidding. Well, are we talking about after Johnny went on hiatus?
No, I never really made the connection of you growing up in Florida and then you ended up in California and doing some of these records. I was just curious what year and you ultimately moved to California.
Remember, I was living in New York with Johnny.
Oh, okay. Got you.
Yeah. And so I was living in New York, and then I would commute, back and forth from Florida to New York and stuff, and then when Johnny went on hiatus, that's when I decided that, okay, to go out there. So that was, 71 or whatever it was.
Wow. That's crazy, man.
Yeah.
Well, I guess like in the late 70s and into the 80s, 90s, etc. What were those years like for you? Because it seems that there was a little bit of a break, as far as I can sort of see in what you, I guess, were at least recording, or maybe I'm missing some stuff. I guess I was just curious what you had
what
going
I was
on.
doing?
Yeah.
I had been studying voice with Seth Riggs and some different people in L.A.
Mm-hmm.
and fronting my own group.
Okay.
Singing. I was not really sure whether it would be successful.
Mm-hmm.
I was just a little bit tentative about it.
Uh-huh.
Perhaps I shouldn't have, but Armageddon, strangely, Martin Pugh and I kind of came back together. And then Capitol Records and Atlantic and different people started coming down to see us. And they were talking big money. Capitol was talking like $1 million to sign us.
Whoa.
Yeah, and things just kind of it's the usual stuff, and things just sort of transpired. Then it didn't work out.
Yeah.
And then I had another group after that. After the Armageddon thing sort of imploded, unfortunately, and then I had some offers from some other people, but I kind of wanted to do my own thing. And then at one point, my parents were very sick, and so I came back to Florida to take care of them.
Gotcha. You've been down there ever since, huh?
Yeah, I've been here, since, and that's kind of how that happened.
Yeah. Where are you in Florida?
Orlando.
Gotcha.
The Orlando area.
Gotcha, man. Wow.
Where are you at?
I'm in Brooklyn, New York. Yeah, I live super close to the St. Vitus bar where I saw you last time.
Boy, that is a crowded area.
Yeah, I guess so.
Just trying to get around there, busy.
Right. There was a good crowd for y'all that night, man, and people really seemed into it. So I was glad to hear those songs finally live and to finally see you playing. So it was really awesome, and I definitely look forward to y'all getting back out there. I hope y'all come through New York, or I'll try to figure out where y'all are playing so I can come see you do it again when this world returns to some semblance of its former self, or we figure out what the new normal is. One way or another, as you said, we got to get live music back happening. So
absolutely. We'll be back there.
Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome, man. Well, Bobby, it was great talking to you, man. Again, I'm a huge fan of yours, and I think you're certainly a person that should be mentioned alongside the Ian Paces and Carmine Pieces of the world. So I hope that if there's some new listeners that aren't familiar with your work, that they can check it out and get a sense of what you've been doing, because I'm certainly a fan. So thanks for your time, and we'll have to catch up soon.
It's been a sheer pleasure of mine. I really enjoyed it. I want to remind you and the listeners that I will have a Bobby Caldwell and Captain Beyond podcast coming out here soon.
Nice.
On the discussion of music.
Okay.
It's going to be a discussion of music that I hope you'll tune into. It'll have its own YouTube page.
Okay.
And Facebook, but so it'll be launched maybe next week.
Oh wow! Okay.
So have a listen to it. Let me know what you think, and send me that thing, that drum thing you were talking about, and I'll see if we can figure out what it is.
Sounds good, man. Thanks again, Bobby, and I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, bye-bye.
All right, everybody, thanks for tuning in and hope you enjoyed the chat. Thanks to Bobby for picking it up a couple years later, and I look forward to seeing Captain Beyond live again sometime in the not-too-distant future. Band rules. Hang in there, y'all. We'll catch you on the next one. Crash, bang, boom.